Okay.
So Gregory may or may not.
He will, he'll just be
A
late.
little bit. Okay, well. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We're gonna do a quick roll call for today. We have present here Teresa Priester. We have Robin Jana Pearson, Christina Amato. We have Sheriff Vickers, Adriana. Obviously, Robert is here with us, and we have visited. In addition to all of us, Connor Eckert.
Yep.
From the Orange County Partner. Thank you for coming. Okay. So proof of notice of the meeting was sent out. Another item. And did anybody have any questions about last month's meetings and notes? Do we need an approval for last meeting's minutes? If anybody has any questions or any clarification, please me. Please. There you go. If not, then we just need a motion to approve the last meeting.
I have to abstain because I wasn't here, so I don't know if you have a comment until February next time.
Yep.
That is a very good question.
I can.
So this would
Oh, we'll just put it later.
You can,
we can actually go as we show. Yeah, and so we had an item number 4 here for executive to discuss the lease. For sale of real property. I think we should move into the executive
Do you
meeting.
want to wait for February or do you want that?
So,
at least get the treasurer's report out of the way.
yeah, let's move to the treasurer's report. Yeah.
Yep, I will give the treasurer's report. The absence of our treasurer, wow, I need for the glasses. Okay.
So I did take the liberty of giving you the larger version
Thank
back.
you. Thank you, thank you.
And just turn the page.
So I appreciate your showing last month and this month side by side so that you can see balances where things are moving. I will start, let's see, with the operating account. This is for the treasurer's report, November 20th, 2023. As of October 1st, our operating account, we had an opening balance of $213,547.23. We had various deposits equaling $65,900.80. In our disbursements, we had, I'm sorry, I ask this every time I have to do this. Do you go through each check or you just do the total?
I typically do the total.
I'm sorry?
Can you remind me of Brookfield Properties?
Brookfield Properties, that was an application, wasn't it?
Yep.
So they have withdrawn their IDA application.
No, the check bounced and we asked them to do it again, so it's clear and the application is official.
Oh, because it was, yeah, it comes in and goes back out. Or goes in twice, one was returned. Okay, so disbursements, total checks, disbursements from account number 2847 in the amount of $12,202.60. For a closing balance of $267,328.43. Our payroll account had an opening balance of $55,542.74. With, let's see, a monthly payroll expense of $10,347.97. With interest paid for a closing balance of $45,239.91. Our application fund Our opening and closing balance, was unchanged at 14,151.4. Our lesser tenant account opening and closing balance, were slightly different. 2,402.37 opening balance with $2.37 interest, for a closing balance of 2,404.74. Our labor monitoring account also had the same opening and closing balance of $15,014.79. Our money market account had an opening balance of $1,222,761.77, with interest of $4,153.99, for a closing balance of $1,226,885.76. That's good that you guys are getting actual interest amounts. Thank you, I appreciate that. Lakeland Bank account, this is just a checking account, right, that remained
Yeah, 'cause
zero opening and closing, just a shell account. But we do have, this is our, what is this, this is our PD, opening balance of, this is our opening balance when we funded it, at $4 million. Thus far, as of October 31st, 2023, we've earned $51,111.11 of interest, for a closing balance of $1,051,111.11. Wonderful. Yes, I'm really happy that they're recording to interest. Thank you. Very.
Thank you for that.
Can I just actually ask before we move on, were we able to, do we have many arrears from any of the cell tower contracts rent? You know, wasn't last month, it maybe was the month before, where there were some late payments. I'm just wondering if they caught up before the end of the year, you know, or not. And not to put you on the spot, I mean, you come back to us.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of like discrepancies based on what Crown Castle said that we owed the city,
Okay.
and then what, there's just, I think, based,
Discrepancies.
yeah, on what they think we owe them versus what we really are due.
At the last meeting, David, associate, did present whole summary, which should be helpful that you have.
Mhm.
And then, I thought this week,
Mhm.
there was a catch-up by one of the
Yes.
providers.
Yes.
I remember which one of the addition.
So you guys have made a demand for.
We made a demand. I think we now have a good handle on what is owed, and we'll report next month as to where we think everything is.
Okay, so we haven't sent any,
We have, David though is in good communication with
um,
the people at Crown Castle.
But we did get a lot, you'll see it in the November treasury report, we did get a big check that basically caught up the whole year of all the payments that they did not send.
very good. We also, I guess I'll address our budget, if you want. It's Adam and I, we have gotten, far on the budget, that this is, actually, there were a few notes to the budget that we wanted to discuss. Because we put together, we see what the actual was for 2023, what we've incurred up to this year, what we've earned and paid. And then we have to create what we anticipate the budget for next year, with a lot of factors we know and understand, but things that we have to discuss with the board are some of our potential upcoming projects, potential of hiring additional employees, and how we want to phase, the board wants to phase that into the budget, and some of these projects which should to some degree be built into the budget over the next 5 years. We have been doing this for many years, and Marlon's had with us so maybe as well. We like to be conservative because, you know, it's hard to know, you know, where, for example, interest rates are going to be next year in terms of got some money market kind of things like that, and we put in sort of conservative projections. But we would like to put at least some sort of placeholders for some of these projects, because I know we've got a lot of stuff that we really want to dive into next year, and I want to account for it so that we keep our feet to the fire and we keep charging these projects. So as a conversation, we have to discuss about sort of what quantify that to some degree.
Do you have the specific
Line items.
line items?
So we have obviously, so let's see, you probably remember from the budget, and I can pull up my computer with the workbook in it, but, different line items, we hold different things, we have like consultants, like our legal, and professional services. But then we have, it's not called special projects, but we have a line where we essentially put, where we could put, like, for example, when we were doing no, when we were doing the, what is it called, the masks and stuff for COVID.
Oh, okay.
That grant project, so various sort of projects like that, anticipated projects. Some of it may be full-time payroll that adds to our existing staff. Some of it may be in the form of consultants, where we're hiring a separate group to provide data for us or provide some of the pieces that fill in some of, website and things like that. So they're kind of, I think a lot of it will probably be in contracts between, potentially we have PR firm, marketing, things like that. So I don't know if Adam is not here, we don't necessarily have a full quorum, but I know that Cher is very eager to finalize this budget. And so that's kind of the last remaining piece that we have to collectively think about. So I don't know that we could spend a long time, that's like a whole other deep conversation that could take us till 8 or 9 o'clock, which I don't want to bog us down with, but if there's some sort of collaboration we can have about sort of thoughts
I
towards.
think if we, obviously, you're all up, put your opinion on it or whatever it is, but just having the line items with a lot of the stuff is just conversations we've been having ongoing.
Yep.
And then having like a starter point, what you think would be like a good projected budget for it, and then just discussion.
Yeah, based off of the conversations we've had around, some of these ideas that we've been talking about, and we've been part of a lot of these conversations. Just approximately how many, even if only a fraction of sort of what we've been talking about is some of these great projects, how many people would you anticipate to be with you guys as full-time employees, and how much of it do you believe is contractor? And then sort of based on, I know you sent us RFPs for the PR firm, but if we were to sort of quantify kind of each project, and again, not to put you on the spot, we don't have to do it now, but if that's something you guys want to sort of think about in kind of a list of things, and maybe we can just assign round numbers to them and put them into bugs. Right, is that a fair way to do it?
Absolutely.
And
So,
then you would definitely just bring it up.
and then we would present, and so when we present the full budget, the way we normally do, we present what our assumptions were for those things.
When do you think we could be, yeah,
Well, whenever. we
Hopefully
get-
by next board meeting, you're
Yeah,
approving
certainly by
it,
next-
so between now and December 13th, I
Yeah,
hope that.
We have to approve it at next board meeting, so we'll present it and.
So do you wanna know what the projects will,
Well, just kind of an anticipate, I think that that's our biggest,
you mean project applicants or the project you wanna do?
no, the
Okay.
projects we wanna do.
Okay.
Yeah, because we kind of have a line item in there for project applicants,
Mhm.
that we have held kind of consistently, because we can't really anticipate.
Yep.
How many people are gonna come in or not. The projects that we want to endeavor with, some of the funds that we have, that we've been brainstorming, like our retreat and things like that. I would like to at least get some of them budgeted for the year. So that would be, like the PR from the website, some of this data collection, the things towards.
any study?
Studies, yeah.
Right, and then once you look at what the PR firms were quoting, then you kind of know how much you guys are gonna spend on that.
Yeah.
So I feel like once you start looking at it, your minds are gonna be all over the place of all the possibilities, so.
That's good. Good place to be.
So then I guess we'll be waiting for that communication. Yes,
So yeah, so I need to write a motion to approve the treasury report for October 2023.
make a motion to approve the treasurer report for October 20.
And I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Awesome. I need a motion to pay the bill for October 2023.
I move that we pay the bills, we pay the bills for October 20.
Second,
I second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Wonderful, thank you. Oh, yes, we also have a QuickBooks online proposal. Help out with our accounting system, which is moving smoother and smoother by the day, which is great. And I think it was very minimal, wasn't it, like 15, some small amount?
180 a year,
Okay, so,
and then the training, that was more.
Training $600 item.
so you guys can look through the proposals, anything you guys want to add about the proposal for QuickBooks, or? I mean, I think we definitely need, that's what we use anyway for.
Yes, it would just make the audit so much easier, and yeah. And Bob, there's like, if it's an ACH fee, like a automatic withdrawal fee, because we're not like other IDAs that have credit cards. Do we need to set up another account where they would withdraw that fee, or like there's nothing wrong with just having it be withdrawn?
But it's not original.
Okay.
Okay, do we need a resolution for that, or this is just a?
It's a spending.
Never a dull moment.
So I, am looking for a motion to, approve the QuickBooks proposal.
Oh, shoot. Oh, my. Okay.
Hey, bud, we're in a meeting right now? Yeah. You might have to come back. Is it okay? Well, we actually. You're more than welcome to come back after, but. Yeah. Appreciate it, thank you.
Marlon, there's a lock on there. This
Yeah.
turn. So,
Okay, so I make a,
so we don't need a resolution or anything for that, it was.
yeah, I think up to,
We do? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I thought
you should,
okay, never mind.
it's an expenditure, you should
Okay,
approve it.
so I, looking for a motion to approve the QuickBooks online proposal, including the training.
All right, so move.
Okay, second,
I'll second it.
thank you, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, abstained? Oh, goodness, okay. Do you want me to get into UTIP stuff before Gregory gets here, or you wanna wait?
You said you're,
I mean, I kind of prefer as many board members as possible, too. Okay, is there something else, can we skip the
Yeah.
that meeting summary and go to something else and come back to it?
So then I guess we would circle back to this one too.
Yeah, sort of back to the,
Alright, so I guess this is, move on to item line item number 6, which is chairman's report. Okay, so where do I start? Alright, so there's some positive, right? We had an inauguration of Boundary. That was sad. There were a lot of people that showed up. How did you there?
Supposed to be there. Congratulations.
Alright, yeah.
Exciting project.
yeah, super excited. It was, everything that should have happened there. So, really happy about that. And, we got some recognition from, the developer themselves and, some of the community members that were there. They were happy about it. So, and even the board of from the homeowners association. Yeah,
Board managers.
HOA, yeah, or,
I think technically they were board managers.
so they were really happy about it. They were excited that it got done in the timely fashion that it got done. So, super positive about that. And great, I don't know if you read the article, there was a quote, like I see, so it was.
In the Times Union.
Yeah. The Times Union.
Front page.
Front page, right, it's still like
Oh.
So, it's recommended. I get a chance by the time she had left, so. Something to note out of that meeting, or I'm sorry, that event, the developer, they're actually, this is public now because it was spoken out in public, so I'm not saying anything that's not somewhere out there already. So they're highly motivated to do something in front of that parking lot in front of it. And it's going to be a huge development, over 100 units, I think 140 units, so. Yeah, I think it's exciting times, right? Super positive. What else? So. Yeah, so another point here that I wanted to talk about, and I've mentioned this in previous meetings, is the efforts that we're making to connect with lenders, bank institutions that understand Newburgh, that have done work in Newburgh, so that we can actually have a sort of Rolodex for developers to come in. Obviously some of them, most of them come in with their own structure, but in the efforts of improving the chances of a project to be completed, I think it behooves the city to have something, some sort of, again, Rolodex of people or organizations that understand Newburgh and actually put their money in Newburgh. So we have some ongoing meetings, I think soon to come meeting with Rhinebeck Bank. I'm hoping to set up a meeting with Webster Bank. These are representatives that people who are pretty, invested in Newburgh. They actually have done some work in Newburgh and understand how they work. And including CPT.
Push the button.
No, you might have to turn them down.
Yeah, turn them out.
Welcome, everyone. Very rapid. Great. Yes. So, so we are gonna bring them currently on item number 6, which is the Dartmouth report, and I'm halfway through what I'm gonna talk about, but I talk a little bit about the navigation. So, as I said, currently I'm talking about some of the efforts that we're making in networking and talking to lending institution banks. And right now we have a meeting with Rhinebeck Bank and hoping to set a meeting with Webster Bank, which had a lot to do with Foundry. So, and the gentleman that I talked to, he's actually a Newburgh resident. So, he knows Newburgh. Anyway, so that's something that I want to share. What else did I want to share? So I attended the meeting at CDAC, and there's a lot of conversations right now that obviously on the projects, there's a lot of, if you guys remember, I talked about the BOA, the brownfield opportunity area. There's a lot of effort going into that. You see that, and actually just the city in general, so there's conversations about that.
That is happening.
It's the Strategic Economic Development Group. And I invited them to come to one of our meetings. We haven't had, and again, it's in the efforts of making bridges, right? Networking, talking to people. We're doing the same thing. We're bound to know people that know people that know people, or maybe you are the person, right? So, so I invited them. I'm hoping to have a few members of the committee come in and introduce themselves and talk about how we have some synergy already there, and potentially if there's a way that we could collaborate and work together in a project that's meaningful and impactful, then we already know each other by personal basis, that type of thing. It's a small city, so I think it's super important. As you are well aware, we received the official request from the city for the armory. So that's something that, you know, if you haven't had a chance to observe, most of you should have known that by now. Since being part of the CDAC, I also volunteered to be part of the BOA steering committee. So the IDA has presence in the say there. So it's super important, I think, for us to be involved in this thing as an IDA. And currently what they're doing is putting together the efforts to start reaching out to the community, because it is a lot community driven. They're looking for a lot of input into, you know, the community that was impacted by the urban renewal that happened in this general area. So yeah, so that's some of it's basically all of the updates on my end. And like some of the stuff that we've been working on. Yeah, that's basically it. Everybody, any questions, anything that you popped up to mind, anything?
Do you have, anything you're thinking about might be a way to have?
Well, it would have to be obviously a project that falls within like our scope, right? And if the city is going to provide some sort of pilot, I would like it for us to come in and say, well, you know, there's teeth to when we issue a pilot, there's certain things that we ask for from a developer. That's where I think we should come in. But, you know, there's space for creativity in the city of Newburgh. As we're finding, we're actually pretty much in the forefront of developing, as an IDA, developing or working on these housing projects, right? So how it could be, I have an idea, but it could probably be many things too. So it's more about having us in the same conversations and having us be actively looking for those opportunities. That's what. But yeah, thank you for the question. Anybody for everybody who wants to add any percent? Council report.
So, good evening. I just have 3 matters to report on. The hotel, pending that project. We did get a draft letter in, that hopefully Sims will sign next week or so, asking for extensions of certain of the benchmarks that were included in the uniform project benefit agreement. There were certain goals and dates that he had to meet, as well as certain recapture events that have not met would allow you to recapture the benefits. Obviously, the project has been delayed because of interest rates, because of lenders backing out. And so I think they'll formalize the request. The question is, do we amend the documents now? Do we wait into next year? He apparently is on the trail of a new lender. And so I think since right now there's no real need to do the amendment, I think it would be better to wait 6 months, see where he is with the lender, and as part of a new lender coming in and documents once, as opposed to amending Especially having an amendment, but
Does he need a letter of confidence or something from us? I mean, is he concerned? He wants us to do it now because he's concerned.
no, I spoke to, that's a great question. I spoke to his counsel and he was fine with my idea of just waiting. But they wanted to advise the board that, you know, they're not just waiting, they're actually trying to get some new lenders in. And Ron Beck was the fact that, he thought he had, kind of disappeared on.
Well, Rhinebeck is disappeared. Do we know where Lakeland is?
Lakeland is- Lakeland
Did
is-
they work, they start with Lakeland
He
originally?
did mention another lender, but he asked that,
To keep it private.
yeah, but it's not public yet. Scobie Drive, good news, I think the board is aware that DEC did approve that plan. It's open for public comment as we speak until December 9th. Assuming that the public comments come in favorably, or the probably if the public comments still approve the brownfield cleanup plan for that site. I think the next step then for our side is to, if some of you remember, New Year 2023.
I think so.
Yes, the three of you remember that the original contract for sale had benchmarks, that a 2-year benchmark that they had to go forward with the project. Because of delays, we kind of abandoned that benchmark until they got to this point. I think now is the right time to come up with new benchmarks to hold them to some sort of schedule to develop the property. And they'll either agree to those benchmarks or they'll tell you that they're not really interested in it. But this is a big step. That
So hadn't we given them till June or July?
June 30th for the due diligence period.
Okay.
But I think as part of that, we can start talking about benchmarks now, because when you go to start the work, when you final thing for the city planning.
Can we ask them to give us a timeline?
Yes.
To start with that.
That's the plan, yeah. That's right. I think that's the next step, but I want to wait until after the public, here, comment period is closed. And then finally, in the chair, I apologize, we exchanged some emails, but we didn't actually talk about Murphy's Ditch. So we did get one payment in over the summer. We did some research on whether or not there was a second payment due. I sent I guess a polite letter in early October saying, hey, we confirm that there's a second payment due, please forward it, and we've heard nothing since. So we're going to ramp up a little bit on the letter, make more of a demand. If we don't pay, we'll consider suing, and hopefully the money will come in before the end of the year. And that's all I have.
I have a question. It's very broad. I noticed that the city council members had questions of us around the hotel project. So it made me think, what is our relationship with them? Like, in terms of, it's almost like, are we responsible for reporting to other folks what is happening with that project, or what's our, I don't know.
I see what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah, what are we supposed to know, and what, you know, I know that you're in touch with, you're updating us on the status of it. Does our relationship go beyond that?
Well, eventually, when it finally gets going, you have an annual reporting obligation
Okay.
to the AEO to set forth what exactly has happened, what are the jobs that are created, what are the benefits that have been received. And right now, you're not at that point. Nothing's been happening since we closed last fall. At some point, I think it was September, October last year. So until that happens, there really is no requirement.
Are they receiving any benefits at this point?
Nothing is.
Okay.
Nothing. As far as I know, they haven't been from sales tax business coverages. They don't have a bank or a lender, so there's no mortgage or corporate tax benefit listed at that project. And the pilot doesn't kick in until after the improvements have been issued a certificate of occupancy. So technically on the pilot, we really don't need to do anything on the pilot grid because it's just kind of sitting there right now. They're still paying tax on what's there because they own that, the base buildings. Eventually, if it gets going, we do want to amend the pilot because it had an outside date of, I want to say 2035 or 36. Obviously, that's now going to be a little bit longer. So again, it won't start until the certificate of occupancy is issued and the property is on the tax roll after the first March 1st date, after that CBO is issued. But after, we should amend it to have the end date, once we know that real time frame. But until then, there's really no obligation to do anything because there really is nothing happening. Thank you. Okay, no problem.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right, Executive Director report.
Don't have too much to update you on because it feels like the whole meeting is my work for the entire month, but we did receive that application and the check did go through for the logistics, the warehouse. Ideally, they would have been at this meeting, but because of the delay in the check, that stopped some of the work. So we're currently working on getting the cost benefit analysis and the test of reasonableness done, and that's not ready either. So my hope is that by the meeting that we have in December, the CBA and the test of reasonableness will be done. We'll I'm trying to also kind of implement giving you like an abstract of each project, like a 1-pager, so you can run down all of the notes. Should have that by next meeting, as well as probably having the developer show up and present. So that's December 13th. We made this date a while back. It's a Wednesday. I'm gonna probably have to see if Charlie's available. It's a bad time of the year, but if in the best case scenario, we'll have all the data that you need and the developer will present. We have Connor here today because some of you had a lot of questions around warehouses in Orange County. And so his job today is to answer all the questions that I do not have the answers for. And he's a great resource. In the 5 minutes that we spoke about what's going on here was like so much knowledge and a short conversation. So pick his brain today for that, to keep in mind what we're going to be talking about at the next board meeting. Also, as you know, on Friday, the RFP closed for the PR, the marketing and the advertising. We had 14 responses. I think it's going to take time to really digest the applications because some of them touch on things that we never thought about. Like when you need work done on your house and you invite contractors over and the contractors teach you a thing or two. I feel like that's what I was learning going through the applications. I'm like, there's some stuff here that, we never thought about. So, maybe, when you have another round, maybe you'll decide that you need another round. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more comprehensive what the ask is. And I think it also will give you guys an idea of how you want to spend the money and what it's going to cost to achieve what you want. But, some of them I noticed didn't know the difference between the town, the city, and the IDA. Some of them thought we were marketing a whole city, and thus that represents the budget that they are suggesting. But I think it's good because it's going to give you all a chance to see what you can do because some other entities can't do that. And so you kind of get to dream big. So Marlon and Gregory, we've been working on that, but I think I said in the email, if you all feel like you want to have your voices heard and you want to be a part of it too, then let me know. But I also just shared I shared the Dropbox files so you guys could review all of them so that way you guys all have a chance to look at them. And we're also doing the website currently with Black Dog. We have bi-weekly meetings that we have on Fridays. And so they've already started populating the website. The parts of the website that are compliance related are super easy. because it's just like mission statement, copy paste. But like the copy of like the flowery stuff of why Newburgh is great and like all of that, that has to be written up. And what I anticipate happening is like maybe one of the three of us just get something out there, like a placeholder, and then maybe the rest of you wanna brainstorm about what you like and don't like. But you know, we just kind of need placeholders for the moment to get the website going. But it's not that anybody's like taking that on and is like, I'm gonna write the, you know, the whole copy for the website.
Is there a task that a PR firm could take on?
They did mention Black Dog that a lot of the website creation work and PR work overlap. And
How do you, I mean, there are specific copywriters who.
yeah, it's some of it, yeah, it overlaps. And so that's why I think looking at the proposals, you know, give you an idea of, do you want to start small, or, you know, you go this full shebang of what they're suggesting, which is, you know, ginormous. So, yeah, it's, you guys can also decide that you want to scale it small in the beginning and then ramp it up to a more, engrossed, you know, campaign or something, you know. So basically what some of these proposals are, like campaigns, marketing campaigns, media and all of that. So, but yes, some of it overlaps. And so as long as they give us the ability to,
Sorry,
this,
almost traffic incident.
yeah, so as long as we can like, you know, update the website ourselves for certain things, then like that stuff is easy to change. So that's where we are with that.
Can I interrupt for just a second? So just to clarify, so advertising is us putting an ad in trade magazines or based on media that we create, a story that we're gonna tell.
Right.
PR is taking events or things that have happened and getting that out to the media.
Like the boundary.
Right, so it's not advertising, so we're not paying for advertising dollars, we're paying PR agency to call like the News 12 and say, hey, I have a great story about Newburgh. So just so that we're clear.
So these guys are Joel.
They're both, and so we're gonna have to decipher
Yes.
how we want to approach this.
Mhm.
So we'll, you know.
That's my exact point.
Right.
And you don't want necessarily to work, but I would love to participate, and I think you do. A lot of this too, just to sort of hear,
So I know that we are all here on the purview or the graces of council, but I have to say, sometimes it feels like it's a part-time for me, seriously. So I do want to thank all of you for even offering to come along. We are meeting every Friday, and that's an additional hour or so. On top of the calls, on top of the meetings, on top of.
yeah.
Yeah.
I almost have a separate uniform, so it's gonna be.
I'd like to get a little closer to that project, and I'm just wondering, in terms of PR too, because I know branding is also a part of that, and so rather than us thinking, well, what is the story we want to tell? Can we get assistance from a PR firm in terms of telling that story?
And some of the proposals
Right.
address,
That's the campaign.
they address that.
They're gonna make up,
Yeah.
not make up, they're gonna generate.
We have everything.
They have the material.
We work on it. We need to know, we need to let people know. And also that they know that it's us, the neighborhoods.
Mhm.
Okay.
And they have graphics and all of this within house to do that, or are those separate people?
They have developers.
For the most part, they're all in.
Yeah, I was getting a lot of questions, and some of them were like, yeah, do you want other consultants to work? I'm like, I don't know, I don't know, I figured out a way to just answer everybody and like, give me all of your info that you can give me, and like, let us pare it down from there. And then the only other thing I wanted to say was that between now and December 13th, I need all of the committees to meet to go over your policies. So like the governance committee, go over the bylaws, and, you know, everything related to governance, and then the audit finance to go over the audit finance stuff. So Adam, right, so Adam's not here, I don't wanna set a date, but for 1, 2, 3, you three are, on that committee, and so, you know, maybe we'll set up like a little chain, and then we can figure out a day to set that date. So I just wanna throw that out there, because that should be approved by the next meeting. If even next Monday, that's fine by me. And that's, I think, all that I have.
I have a question, so you're moving forward with the Tesla Reese development and the economic impact on your application already? Do they have a tenant yet?
No.
So how do you all feel? How much does it cost to do that again? What's the-
How much does this analysis cost? Like 12,000, but I think Connor can talk about what IDAs do with spec projects. We
And I
were.
think that it was interesting when we had the meeting with Kevin.
Mhm.
From EDC now, What for America about,
Yeah.
well, which we'll talk about, sort of new tech stuff, but I would like him to come and talk a little bit about his experience and because he has tremendous experience in dealing with IDAs and new techs, and I asked that specific question because we have, for example, Scobie Drive, where they are kind of building a spec warehouse. You know, obviously our objective is to create the most amount of jobs and economic tax variables as possible. And if we are going to build that into our UTIP sort of scoring rubric, how do we do that for a project that may not have tenants, that may not have an inhibitor, but our building warehouses, you know, we know that it's great and positive tax variables, like how do we get to that end and also, you know, defend it. And he said it's a very common thing, which I'm sure you will speak to Connor about, especially about warehouses, of not necessarily having an end user, but having sort of a range of potential. I mean, from the development perspective, you can't, you're spending the money, you're putting up a few 100,000 to 1 million, 2 million square feet of box. It's very costly to get there. You're not just going to put it up and leave it there and be like, oh, we couldn't find anybody, sorry. So once they are pregnant with that process, with that building, it is definitely within their best interest, you know, to pursue highest and best, which is reassuring, whereas in a lot of other spec development, it could be different. With warehouse, it really has to be used as, you know, industrial warehouse.
You know, when, you all have been here for a while. How are you feeling about the reality of jobs coming out of our pilot projects? Are you know?
So
Well, what's actually happening, how many pilots are actual?
But I wanna see what you.
Yeah, I think what's behind that, I'll just go ahead and say what's behind it. Feels like, where are we in a conversation with workforce development? So that we actually have a sense of what kind of jobs the city needs and.
The direction was.
Right, because someone can come in and say, and what we're seeing often, just in the year that I've been here, is most of the jobs are gonna come with the actual building, the actual development. And those are short-term jobs, they're jobs, but they're short-term jobs. And from what I understand, they kind of come and go, you know, everybody comes and do the construction. Then it's over, but it doesn't necessarily set people up for this sustainable kind of jobs that then transfer back into building and sustaining our city.
So
are we in conversation with workforce development folks? Because I'm wondering if sometimes we could suggest to some developers, oh, you're thinking about doing business here. These are the kind of, you know, businesses that people are training at the colleges for, just a broader conversation.
So in an ideal world, the way that I see it, we're having ongoing conversations with the planning, the actual city. And we're saying these are these areas of opportunity. And this is how we are going to promote this thing. And this is how the idea is gonna help us get there with every other community out there that's doing this development, economic development. What we've done so far, we're actually building a number of projects that have been completed versus what's on the pipeline, but in the pipeline and what could come, we're looking at big cities. So what, like I would say, I'm hearing a little bit more from what you're saying, like where do we need to come in, right? Like, what are we?
Yeah,
So
like-
I'm hearing a little bit of that in the question, so.
Like, is there an opportunity for us to be proactive since we know the city really has such a need for
So
child development?
So, yeah. Okay, so this is where I was going with before that. So, yeah, ideally, it would be a super organized plan, direction. With identified areas of opportunity and strategy to get there, right, and collaborating. The types of businesses that we can attract depends on that. When it depends on the environment, depends on the economic environment here, the type of people that live here. So a lot of what we're doing right now is, in my opinion, transitional to get to that. So we're building the blocks to get to the point where we could say, along the way, hopefully, we're attracting the ideal type of developers and businesses. But if anybody else has.
No, so we're gonna get into this a little bit when we talk about this conversation, but when we do these, when we have developers who propose, who come to us, we have them do, these analyses, and sort of net fiscal impact analysis. They are telling us we ideally as an IDA are looking for primary jobs, exactly what you're talking about, jobs where people have to be here, have to live here, have to move here, have to work here in perpetuity in the building. Secondary jobs are the jobs that are created when the building is built, the construction workers that come here that provide economic, pass through to the other businesses. That's secondary and tertiary. It's kind of like a ripple. What we're really, our primary focus is to create those primary jobs. It's to get businesses here that will employ people and that will employ people that have jobs that building needs to have these jobs, these businesses in perpetuity so that the people around here will have jobs to work. To your second point about can we direct that, we got into that with the hotel project where we actually built that into the into the resolution where we want them to be looking at workforce development within the city. We want them to be employing and to be educating people here. And primarily looking to people in the community before looking for contractors and looking for, even for those secondary jobs, even for the contractors and the consultants and the other things to be looking local. And I think we even put certain metrics in there relative to that for the hotel project, which is where we started. But to get kind of to circle back to which we'll talk about hopefully after Connor, the UTEP thing that is also something that many communities build into their UTEP scoring rubric as what is the most important. Our job is to create jobs. Our job really is to create primary jobs. And if you are coming to us for the same piece of land or the same building and you say, I want to put up X, Y, and Z, and we're only going to create 1 or 2 jobs. And somebody else says, yeah, I want to come into that building and I'm going to put in some sort of commercial use that's going to create 8 or 10 jobs. That's higher on our list. That's higher on our scoring, because that's what our job, that's what we are supposed to do. And in our hierarchy of the scoring rubric of looking at projects when they come to us to be able to approve, deny, is something like that, which is very, very relevant. And also to your point, how many in your either primary or secondary you're hiring existing from the community? How many are you taking from other communities and bringing in? You know, a firm may come in and say, oh, we're an engineering firm, we want to move our offices here, okay, great. All of our engineers live in other places and we're gonna have them move to Newburgh. That's great because they're gonna be here and they're gonna spend dollars. But who's gonna move here and actually employ the people who already live here, who are already existing? And those are different categories within our considerations.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Because I'm also thinking that we get to think more long term, like in 5 years, because then we expand our network of who we're talking to people who are directly involved in workforce as well. Like the colleges, like, natural resources still.
And then to Chris's point, but with the Foundry project, and that they have a new project that's primarily residential. So very little jobs, but the whole concept of that is people need to live somewhere. If they're here, then they're going to be available to work here, which will then be able to bring in commercial businesses because the workforce is here, the families are here. Those families will then spend their dollars here, so that it's a perfect economic development cycle of, you know, having a place to live, but then building a commercial space for people to work, and then also for people to spend money. You know,
To solicit existing.
there have to be
And have
work systems, there have to be supermarkets, there have to be restaurants, and dry cleaners, and everything that goes with living in a city area. So that's the whole concept. So that's even the residential side before we do the commercial bonding resolution as well, because residential doesn't create, you know, more than 1 or 2 jobs, because you have a superintendent, maybe a maintenance person, but that will lead to more jobs on the commercial side, because you need to support those families.
So, yeah, thank you, Bob. The last thing I'll say to that is something that we're talking about. That basically, if in the areas found where this happened, things falling apart. Right, so the overall economic impact of that, Bob's point, it's a pretty heavy thing to consider whenever you make a decision. So, yes,
And you didn't go to you didn't go to the tour that we had the first time, but as we all know, they were filming something there and the film crews that weren't, but the film crews that were like, I don't know how many people were on this cruise, 30+ people, but they all had catering from Liberty Tree, so. Imagine that scenario in any other, you know, way, that's kind of how that helps.
I mean, I can also.
This is a story.
that Wherever there's adaptive reuse projects, like the Foundry, it's difficult to put in retail because the building didn't have the layout for it.
Right.
But most of the new projects that are coming in, almost all have ground for commercial. So we're inviting housing, but at the same time, opportunity for entrepreneurial development.
we're doing a good job, I say. All right. Thank you for the question. All right, I will definitely always say that, you know, I will always open it for questions because I think it's important for everybody. And I actually like when you get a question, always pretty. They initiate good conversations. Anything else, share?
Nope.
Okay, so then let's move on to item number 9 and then, all right.
Bring your chair over and.
Stool up.
Appreciate you all having me. Happy to be
Oh,
here.
thank you.
I've been to a lot of IDA meetings, seamless environment at that. I don't know if, as Mr. McLaughlin mentioned, he was, we worked together at the Montgomery IDA. So we let the IDA spirit guy, and he came into the tough time, in the middle of COVID.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What do you do over at the,
Same as you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go. Happy to be here. Sounds like you guys are doing great work, boundary, incredible project. And it's pretty exciting to hear that you're adopting the ideology that IDAs don't just have to incentivize your standard factory like it did in the 1940s. You know, the tools of community building and so that's not really. So my purpose today, I think, is just to give a quick industrial update on the market, to which there's a lot of activity. And the way I'll start it out, for those of you who don't know what the Orange County Partnership is, we are a private, not-for-profit economic development organization, been in business for 36 years, and our primary role is to attract new companies and developers to the market, but also help existing companies expand and work with our local partners, whether it's a municipality, an IDA, to advance their economic development vision. So a lot of my day in particular is spent working with international consultants, brokers, companies in a lot of cases, to find new sites. And what I'll say is this, I would say for the past year, has been an incredibly busy time. You know, Fortune 500 companies that are actively looking for sites in the market. But the biggest burden to facilitating projects has been what you so eloquently stated, availability of trained workers and availability of buildings, Class A new buildings, because timing is everything. But when it comes to the market, we're at a sub 5% interest or a sub 5% vacancy. For new Class A construction market is very tight. And given the interest rate environment, it's very difficult to construct new warehouses, new industrial buildings. So demand is at a premium. So you have super low vacancy with high interest rates and a lot of tenant demand out there, companies looking to the market, wanting to be here. The need for spec development is almost at an all-time high. Yeah. And when it comes to site selection, the speed to market is everything. So if you have a spec building ready, you as a community are toward the front of the line when working with Dragon. If it's just dirt, which used to be, you know, that was the goal. You had a shovel-ready site. It still is gold in a lot of ways, given some of the market conditions. You know, companies, they don't get as excited. They need to see construction and something built that's even better than you can see the market and everything. But the dynamics are pretty strong. But again, the low bit, I don't think I can name one Class A warehouse vacancy over 100,000 square feet in Orange County. I don't think there's one of us now. So that Class A industrial space is at a premium. And if you're in a position to facilitate a spec industrial project, it's not a matter of if it will be leased, it's when. I mean, just the intense demand, and then there's just not a lot of space. It's bigger.
I'm sorry.
No, please, don't get it anytime.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
it's more of a conversation than
anytime.
So one of the questions that I have for us here, is there a particular industry that's coming in here more than others? And another question that I have, do we have any information on average wages for these type of facilities?
Yes, I think it's a mix. You know, the warehouse logistics sector is continually growing as e-commerce grows nationally. But there's pretty solid activity in packaging, in food and beverage production, like processing. There's a lot of activity with what we call clean tech, which is the assembly and production of items like solar panels, batteries, electric vehicle charging stations, given some of the dynamics from the Inflation Reduction Act and the federal money that is flowing in the market. So I would say the bulk of my portfolio is focused on light manufacturing, food and beverage, warehouse logistics, and then this growing sector of clean energy.
So mostly laborers then. A lot of positions for basic laborers without a lot of high tech.
Yeah, it's a mix, like right now in the market, we're working with a company that needs 225,000 square feet. What they do is they manufacture high-end packaging for pharmaceutical products, so, you go to the pharmacy, and vial pills, that vial is manufactured, so cap is manufactured, so, kind of supply chain oriented, light manufacturers like that.
Yeah.
Where it's medium scale, some high scale positions. But the product for labor just across the country generally is increasing wages. And even the commercial days that are on that, there is competition for logistic workers to the point where now wages are higher on the Town Road than I would say any warehouse market outside of New York City.
So the wages are determined on locally. The wages are determined on that micro level, locally.
So it depends. So I think with the way the company set the wages is there's kind of standard formulas across the states and markets that they're in. But when there's a product for labor, the wages will just naturally increase. Like when Amazon comes to town, and then Cardinal Healthcare expands on the Town Road, and then Farmer Kansas there's this natural.
Can I ask how many people are employed at Amazon and Tesla?
Yeah, so Amazon employs 1,000 people roughly, and Tesla will employ 300 people. They just hired their first 150 people. And the interesting point with that is Tesla had a site in Massachusetts. The project fell through, and then Tesla needed something very quickly, something good. And why would they come to Newburgh and Harding? We have around the confluence of the highways. There's a pretty strong labor profile on this side of the county, but the building is built. There is no other market that could offer 900,000 square feet. But they, it sounded like 3 months ago that they built it. Speed is.
Where are they getting their workers? Are they high, medium and high?
I believe the Tesla wages are in the mid to low $20s per hour. But the interesting piece there is they get a benefits package that is the same as the corporate employees. So they get pretty solid benefits. They help employees with public transportation. They brought over, I think, 10 or 15 people from Pennsylvania where they left. But they hired mainly from Orange County and Dutchess.
So one of the questions that I had was, we, at the Town Road, we seem to be building out warehouses. And, I wanted to see, which you actually already answered, right, the biggest case, right? Yeah, and I go online, I was waiting for them, do that measure, right, and look at it, there seems to always be some sort of vacancy. But what do you mean by tier A, grade A?
Yeah.
What is that? Maybe that's a differentiator that you don't see on the market.
Definitely. So, when I say class A, I mean brand new construction, high ceilings, a healthy amount of lower bounds. Because all your ceilings are higher back stuff. More product in the store. Class B and class C is more when you think of the city, or you're going to go down in South Jersey, buildings that are 25 feet and bit run down, and might not have water, sewer. So class A is top of the line buildings infrastructure that is built. Of course,
And you generally, spending money to build, will only want to build class A, and it's really not building the money right now to build it unless you're building class A products. So you would assume anything new around here. I mean, like, for example, we're still developing. I think part of one of my questions, the city of Newburgh itself within our purview, and I don't know, have you guys identified, are there any other locations within the city that are new buildable potential for class A or adaptive reuse for B and C? I mean, I know we have a lot of larger, older spaces. In projects that we try to pursue or that we try to attract, Once upon a time, there was a lot of light manufacturing industrial here in the city on a smaller scale. And at the time it was fascinating product when it was built. That's a great commercial tax rateable for us as a city, would be wonderful, but I don't know. If we have any ideal location or any place that anybody is sort of identified as, has enough square footage for,
Additional projects.
additional projects.
You know, there are a few buildings, in the city that I've included on, you know, because often we'll get requests from concerns, they focus on site selectors.
Yeah.
They'll represent, you know, we work with the company, insert building, company, Dragonfly. And, we'll say we need X, Y, Z, send us your sites. So there's been a few other that are included, Whistler Ave. There's, you know, the city has come up with, I think, is a walkable labor pool with transportation connectivity, pretty healthy infrastructure. You're proximate to the transportation assets. I think I've seen companies want to get to this side of the county over the last 6 months. Even Tesla's given us the momentum, Montgomery gives us the momentum. So there's some real safe approaching this way. But a lot of the times with the older buildings, it's low ceilings hinders, you know, you really have to raise the ceilings, which could be an opportunity for the IDA to get involved.
So what keeps the class A from going self-sufficient and lowering the,
I think it's really just as the market evolves, you know, like maybe in 10 years, the new building that's proposed on South Street would be, you know, 20 years class B because, you know, the buildings are now taller and more efficient. So I think it's really just as the market evolves, but for the next, you know, I would say, you know, 50 to 55 foot ceilings with that number of dots, that's pretty privileged. Right near the highways, will remain highly sought after buildings.
Also, these are generally long-term leases when they sign these. I mean, I don't know, you guys getting as many as 20 years now? I mean, you're looking at like at least
Yeah.
10, 15, 20-year leases where they're.
world is turning into woman.
So,
She reminded me of a question that I had, which is, I think I'm gonna ask the same question, but in a different way. Do we have an idea of like employee versus square footage?
You know, here we could break it down. Just for certain order, there's so many, you know, you can drive the county for a year and find a new building, somewhere, but, it's the modern warehouses, the numbers change. So you look at in Montgomery, like there's a 1.3 square foot warehouse. There's 400 employees, and that's because they mix employee work with automation. So the robots don't replace the employee jobs, but they supplement the employee jobs. So that it's the humans and the robots working together. It creeps me out.
Right.
It's the beginning and the end. But
But that was her
it's really
question.
all.
That was, I mean, eventually, we all know we're headed towards more robots and people. But if we're trying to create jobs,
Yeah.
Eventually these factory places will turn into more robots.
Yeah, so the average wage so far is like somewhere in the mid to low 20s.
And again, it depends on who the tenant is, what the company's doing. You know, to be conservative, I would say high teens to maybe lower.
Because there's a few things, that come to mind. One, we're in the city, so it's, we don't have a lot of expansive space in what we have, just, you know, I would love to know how many, the total square footage of all of the warehouses and the total employees of the new build outs. Not all the older build outs,
Yeah.
the new build outs, just to really understand, kind of gauge what's the square footage on this project, the post?
It's 400,000, 1.83, I think.
Which I think is a good size, given some of the requirements we have around. Most of them fall from 225 to 500. 500's you know, forward right in the sweet spot.
Well, 100,000 square feet.
Yeah.
In terms of jobs. I mean, if you take the example you just gave us.
Yeah.
You could potentially, I mean, we don't know what their end user is, but,
But-
I mean, for 400,000 square feet, you could anticipate 100+ jobs.
I think that's great. Yeah, and you know, a good way to look at it too with these spec projects is, I'll look at the number of parking spots that they've got approved for, you know, 3 shifts. If it's, you know, there's 50 parking spots, there's potential for up to 50 times 3 shifts. But yeah, I think 100 would be a safe bet. And again, it depends, yeah, if there's assembly more light production, commensurate with zoning, it could be a bit more. It could be, if it's warehousing, it could be a bit less than 100. But it also could be 300.
Right.
Of course, we want it.
Of course,
But,
we
you
want
know,
it to be 300 too.
Right, but again, you know, we let's say to people 100 jobs, you have, you know, people walking to work, you know, you have people public transit, bike to work. You know, their wages that people can, you know, spend money downtown. You know, it's an impactful project. I think this one could be very impactful.
Are the workers coming, from the county? Or there are lots of workers coming?
You know,
You might have answered that, but I keep in my mind, I'm like, how many people are prepared to take these jobs?
You know, it's a mix, and the good news about projects at this scale is, yes, it's benefit the community in the micro, but it'll also benefit the region. Whereas our you know, neighbors in Poughkeepsie, you know, drive 10 minutes and a couple of work, so there's a regional benefit to it as well. But I think it depends, like Amazon has people coming across the region. Whereas, you know, we just did a 100 project or 100 job project in the city of Middleton, where I had a measure, you know, 40% of the people in the city. So it's just an old thing.
How many of these projects, how much benefit are they requesting? How much are you seeing approved? I mean, I know Amazon and Montgomery is very developed and.
Yeah, so I would say, you know, all of the IDA projects, at least for the most part, the benefits have been aligned with what was offered in the UTEP, which really big limitations. Manufacturing projects generally get a longer pilot, potentially 15 years. Warehouse logistics goes 10. You've seen in general, but again, it's all at the board's discretion as to how you set it up. But yeah, it's pretty across the map. The sales tax is a big savings, especially when you're constructing something to scale. And then the mortgage quarter tax, I don't know. It's like I'm thinking Amazon got a mortgage quarter tax exemption, but they don't. You know, that's not as important.
When I was representing the Montgomery IDA, they did get to mortgage quarter tax. I can't remember if they didn't when I was representing.
But yeah, of course, the property tax, real property tax savings, and sales tax are critical. I think for the smaller to mid-sized companies, the mortgage tax becomes more increasingly important. When you do a $500,000 square foot project, it's not really traditional bank financing. You go to capital markets or with USA insurance, like that. So it's a little different, but it's case by case basis.
This is maybe more of a question about you were at the IDA. Were there projects that were phasing out under their 10 or 15-year pilot? And, you know, was there any sort of renegotiation? Was there any sort of reconversation about more benefit phase? What kind of things did you experience?
Yeah, so there were a few projects that phased off, and no, there was no conversation on re-engaging the benefits. There is, you know, I have the privilege of going across the county and doing this. So talk that before the second the IDA benefits are over the company's gone. That's never happened in these guys, to my knowledge. You know, once someone has invested 10+ years in potentially, you know, but you look at this project, it's going to be, I would guess, $77 million ish to construct. It's tough to just pick up the roots and go.
Well, you have institutional capital, you have workers, you have equipment, it's not so easy.
But again, if circumstances change, if it's a retention issue, if, the state of North Carolina is trying to court, the company we attract to this project, then, the incentives might come up again, but it's my experience. Really good.
The only one that I'm aware of is the Midline.
Yeah,
And
and
left way on that doesn't approve the space, but then went to Montgomery.
Is that right?
And the case there was they were in 500,000 square feet, and they maxed out the site. So to keep them in New York and Orange County, they went to Montgomery where they could get 1.3. So.
And that's still kind of a win.
Yeah, yeah. And then that goes.
Oh, no, I don't know. How was that? I don't know, B tiers.
But it was a weird, it was a triangle site, if I remember right.
That's right, yeah.
Bounded by a railroad track, a river, and a highway, so there was no way to understand that the site was the site.
Yeah,
That was it.
yeah, that was their only option, to stay in Oregon County.
And
So you were talking about speed to, just speed to what's the other, the market, right? So we have someone asking for a pilot program, they don't have a tenant. And they are looking at a brownfield. How speedy or not speedy might that project be? Because we have to figure out whether or not we wanna, approve something like that, and if it's, if the projections are like, over the next 5 years, if you have buildings, they're definitely gonna come, but then that slows down at some point or gets saturated. What's your thoughts on that?
So is the brownfield cleaned up, capped? Entirely.
They haven't started anything on there yet.
Right.
I guess that's what the facility's gonna do.
And is it, can you tell me more about the site, the service?
They haven't seen the application yet, so, but, it was the old AstraZeneca.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think,
I mean, yeah, we have two separate sites that.
smaller site.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so on the Brookfield side, I think, given the remediation that's already happened, they could break ground, assuming, everything goes in the direction it needs to. Like for next year.
And if they build an A-class building, they shouldn't have any real problem with tenants.
Given the market conditions, I do not think so. And then we look at, companies that, like a Brookfield or like there's another firm, Skinell, another big one. When they build buildings, they're Class A, very nice product. Like if you wanted to take a field trip, you go out to Dalytown Road. Brookfield just built a 312,000 square foot building. Very nicely done. So I think when there's a developer that has the pathway to get something financed in this environment, there's very few and far in between. So it just becomes a matter of putting the pieces around the financing themselves.
you said, the last site that you mentioned, that's rented out already?
I can't say too much about it, but there will be some use by, over the books.
Are there any examples of an adaptive reuse for the space that big outside of manufacturing or whatever?
So a built warehouse, you're saying? You see it a lot in the city, warehouses trading, and turning into high-rise apartment buildings. But not that I know of in Orange County, not the Dodson Valley in Orange County, just because again, the market is so strong for warehousing, that when someone acquires their immediate choices to come out easy. That's not the thing. Like you look at places like City Winery, there's a warehouse, wool, manufacturing facility that was turned into happens.
Smaller, older warehouse, certainly what we have on the here. Yeah, very. I just read an article about another one of our companies, big sort of building malls. They're doing, a lot of people doing a lot of different things with malls, but one of the very, biggest users right now of malls is universities. Universities are coming and taking over old malls. For schools, it's not really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, take it.
And I would offer, as you, I heard you talking about the PR, as you, if you have announcements or, you know, you want to share a project, feel free to send it to me, because we will include it in our newsletter, we'll push it out there to the developers and the photos to try and kind of.
You know, do you guys focus on, you guys obviously spend a lot of time in industrial warehouse, how much smaller of commercial do you get?
We do everything, smallest we go, I think it's 5,000 square feet, so we go kind of small. But there's some pretty impactful projects that fall within the 5 and 5,000 square feet.
I mean, because that's attainable within adaptive reuse around here, for sure.
Yeah, no, I mean, you drive around the city just objectively, you see opportunity after opportunity. I drive, you know, down Broadway, and I think, you know, communities across the state are doing generic environmental impact statements to get sites shovel ready. But you're seeing communities start to get their downtowns shovel ready, form-based code, and, you know, if you meet these requirements, 60 to 90 days, you get approval.
Also, to that point, we are about to talk about UTEP provisions, and reliability and making it more accessible to attract those applications. So certainly if you have things that you're seeing in the marketplace that people are looking for that are, because there, as you obviously very well, first, there are a lot of different ways to frame a UTEP and how to present that, and if there are certain things especially specific to us and to our city that would help us attract more applications and more of those sort of rich net positive tax rateables, please send them our way, you know, because I think, you know, we're at a place with the UTEP where we can sort of be at a crossroads and we have some decisions to make, and we've got some great consultants who are helping us, but this is a very specific city, and I think, you know, we would love to have more light industrial and those tax rateables at the city could be teaming with it, and maybe isn't set up the way it's dealt with modernly, but if there are ways to continue to entice them or things that you see within what we have within our infrastructure, that would be very helpful.
Well, you know, you're doing a great job, even as is, you know, a lot with Virginia, North Carolina, and increasingly so on cost basis. I mean, look, New York State has, you know, rich natural resources, immense quality of life, access to talent, and huge innovation. When it comes down to cost perspective, we just don't meet the bar. So what the IBAs do to review is you level the playing. You know, at the end of the day, we might have the best site, but Virginia might have a similar site with the same labor. And then it comes down to how do we make it, it'll never be level, and how do we just make it the same stratosphere? So
Any sense of the cannabis industry in terms of business development, and do you see any possibilities that we might be, keeping our eye on?
definitely, I mean, cannabis, and, you know, the state, they had an interesting rollout of some of the regulations, but there's a little bit of daylight. The industry is very, very active. We just finalized a $100 million expansion at Farmington in the town of Montgomery. We're talking with a handful of big growers and manufacturers out on the West Coast who want to come to the New York market. They like, again, everything is about access to them. People that can walk, and has mobile transport to get to work. It has infrastructure. So I can see in appropriate areas of the zone of the city that, you know, cannabis manufacturing is in the cards. And it is, in a lot of cases, one of those pharmaceutical grade manufacturing. It's not like a caricature of what you think is going on in there. It's people who laugh at us, making highly regulated product. So definitely.
In the city here?
Yeah, I think so, yeah, and there are existing industrial buildings that might be a bit, you know, more worn down as, you know, not maybe accommodate modern warehouse. I think And again, these facilities often don't be larger than 50,000 square feet, right? So you can accommodate a number of sites. And a lot of these companies, they have a mandate, to connect with the communities and the ESG level, the environment and social governance. So they want to make a net positive impact. They want to invest in workforce development and training. We work with seniors to develop a cannabis.
So you were part of that?
Yeah.
I noticed that.
Yeah, it was, it was early in the industry, but yeah, it made it work.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you're also connecting people to, are you part of the team that's connecting people to potential employer?
Yeah, I think, so when we have a real company coming to the county, we make sure Dr. Young and her team and senior worker at the table. Because we can't do it without our institutes hire, and we're even talking about programs that will, follow micro credentials. That, you don't want to sit for a 2-year associate's degree, you can learn what you need to learn. Right. Work with manufacturing, so that they can reach within 3 to 6 months, you get certified. And from there, the companies train you up because they have no choice. So definitely, it's good.
How are we doing with policies around formerly incarcerated folks as a targeted pool for laborers?
Yeah, I think formerly incarcerated folks.
We have a large group of formerly incarcerated folks.
They actually were given, though, in the New York State and the selection process, top priority in the licenses, in the licensing of
Minorities.
New York State, wondered if we're tapping into it.
They're
I know that
supposed to.
it's there, but
As long as they're coming to not people for the disadvantaged holders to be able to go and get to the site.
For selection.
Be selected in a small.
Yeah, New York State is, yeah, which is. Sort of the licensing.
I think like, I would say formerly incarcerated folks, veterans, there is a workforce crisis happening in the country. And the opportunity to connect with, under certain aspects of people in the community is an opportunity we should all take.
Because seriously, that's the biggest problem in New York. We talk about jobs, everybody, we need more jobs, we need more jobs. Don't have a well-developed workforce here. And largely because they've been, really so underrepresented in the work, with like generations of poverty and poor education and all that. So that has to change. I really believe that that's part of what's holding us back as
It's a great idea.
Success we could have.
It's a great idea, and I think certain companies would certainly buy into the concept. Given just, again, the big companies have found that it's a shift, because it used to not really be like this. But they want to make sure the facilities are environmentally friendly. They want to connect with the community on a local basis. They want to make a positive impact in the community, where before that might have been on the back burner in a lot of ways. Now it's at the forefront. That's just given like the global conversation regarding corporate responsibility. But it's a great idea. I think that's something that I can see making a difference for our economic development.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else has any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to say that I was reaching out to you and then she reminded me that you had you already here.
Oh,
So thank you for being so, forthcoming with the information and also offering to put some of our work in use. We'll take it.
I look forward to it. Yeah, I'm sure I'll be back for, we've got some exciting projects in the docket. Yeah, I'll be back.
I want us to be in a first name basis, and I want, but never something that's like, that fits perfect in New York, where you say, they're ready.
Yeah.
So.
Love it. Yeah. And we have some events coming up, feel free to.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they're attending.
We have 2 people. Gregor's gonna be there, so, invites out for everybody still, so you see this.
That's where.
December 8th? December 5th. Okay. Oh, well, you wanna assign the other, it's actually actually going back to your office. You can take it back, Gregory just needs to. Yes.
Yeah.
I will say.
No, please. Well, thank you for coming.
Nice to meet you, Lydia. Very nice to meet you. Try to make this time for our own conversation now. Like, we don't have to take forever to talk about tonight, but that we have to make some decisions on.
So I think the children actually, I remember great, because we will, have a picture home. Yeah, thank you again. So, yeah, so, did everybody, let's go back to number 3, did everybody get a chance to go over the average budget, or do we have a motion to approve? Item number 3, which is the minutes of the previous video.
I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes for the last meeting in October.
A second?
All in favor? Opposed? Same.
That's the same.
That, and then, I guess we did, you want to, I feel like we're petering out on the energy. So I want to give you the, like, time right now. So, you
We'll try to be quick with the UTEP stuff, because I know that we're tired. We've talked about some of this. We had a really interesting conversation, with, Mark and his team, from Grow America ABC. Who has tremendous amount of experience with UTEP. We have a UTEP that is in place. There were specific reasons, why we have the UTEP that we have. We wanted to pursue a consultant, specifically, this gentleman who had, was really instrumental in the New Rochelle process, which, was very successful in attracting, new business, new development as a result of their IDA. One of the things, there have been many conferences and discussions on why this was, and they say this repetitively, was predictability, was essentially, as we all know, developers want to come to the city, but they struggle with knowing what the process is going to be, they struggle knowing what their incentives are going to be, if they can actually make it work, and they get very far into it, spend a lot of money, and a lot of them disappear because they can't make it work. And if developers were to know upfront that they had predictability, that they had as of right, that they had packages that they could sort of lock into and say yes. So we've been back and forth, share his suggested 2 different versions of UTEPs, in a few different communities, which range from picking zones, picking districts and incentivizing them and saying, okay, we want to give a certain package to this area and we want to try to incentivize, which I think is, well, I guess I'll start with that one. I think can be great, but also can be touchy because there are a lot of different zones in the city and it's hard for us to say, okay, we are going to pick a zone that is maybe separate of what the planning department is doing, and we want to incentivize this zone. How are we to say that this zone is more important than another zone, or that one area is not? And so in this conversation, he brought up a few different incentive, and he deals with UTEPs of tons of different natures, and they look differently. It's not one size fits all, which is great. So we asked him to come up with kind of, based off of what they know of Newburgh, and he's very familiar with Newburgh, what would be a great package to add to help bolster our UTEP, give it some more flexibility, but also give it some more reliability.
Is reliability and predictability the same?
You predict, yes, predictability and reliability. For developers to be able to come in and say, okay, I want, like Connor was just saying, for something like industrial, it's kind of at the top of the net benefit scale, at the top of the tax rateable jobs is like a dream project for us because it's creating jobs, it's creating a lot of net positive tax ratables, that they may need a longer horizon than, say, another project that is potentially another residential, which is only creating 2 jobs, is creating sort of secondary jobs, or is creating a secondary net impact, but is not really the heart of creating long-term commercial. So, one of the ways he gave a schedule, in saying there's kind of this example, a sliding scale for commercial development, where if you were providing X, Y, and Z, our standard UTEP will allow for something as long as a 15 or 20-year pilot, but that's only if you are providing 50 or more jobs, 100 or more jobs, you are providing X amount of taxes, you are providing, and to not necessarily box into any area, but to, because you understand for every project that comes to us, say like this, like an industrial project, who is going to need a 15 or 20-year pilot, that becomes an exception, and we then have to go out and get approval, and that becomes less reliable, less predictable, and the developer is not sure what's gonna happen at the public meeting. Is it gonna be a great public meeting, or people are gonna come out against them? It's, you know, it can be volatile, and so to have sort of that incentive package, I think Adam and I and Sharon, John, and talking about this, it seemed like a great example, and he gives us an example of that. The other thing, we don't really have we do have a sort of a scoring rubric, but I think sort of a more definitive scoring rubric where we are prioritizing the things that we want to see in Newburgh, like we were talking about before. You know, the most amount of jobs gives you a better score, the most amount of, net positive tax ratables, the most amount of local jobs, the most amount of predictability of longevity or keeping jobs for the longest amount of time. So, that's sort of, and again, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're talking about things that we think are most important to be able to create jobs and taxes for us, to put into our UTEP. Again, to make it more flexible, but also give that. One of the things, we have dealt with housing, other municipalities deal with housing, and I'm just going to give my little sort of spiel that I spoke to Marlon about this earlier. That many of you may not know or how this works, which I would like to ask him to do. I don't know if this is a separate study, but I think it's very relevant to us at the IDA and even at the city level, but particularly for us. Every building, every project is sort of on a scale of jobs, but then also of tax ratables. So there's this concept of net fiscal impact, where a building is paying a certain amount of taxes based on their assessed value, and they're paying taxes towards the municipality. Depending on what the use of the building is, they also have what they call impacts, fiscal impacts. How much do they use the fire department, the police department, DPW? And these are schedules that are not just made up. These are based on the number of employees in the building, the number of inhabitants, the number of the type of use, generally use a certain amount of impacts. And there are companies that do these studies, including EDC and other companies that create these net fiscal impact analyses, which we do.
I think America can do that.
And which the city council also should be doing. I know from previous days with Leyland, in order to do any development in the city and that project, there had to be a net fiscal impact analysis, because the objective is we have a city, we have this bucket of total assessed value. We have a lot of buildings that are off the tax roll in the form of nonprofits or schools or hospitals or churches or that don't pay taxes, but that still do use impacts, that still do use DPW, the fire department, the police department, city services, things like that. So we have this budget that we have to support. Taxes go into the budget, and the largest amount of taxes come from the property taxes. And so our objective here, and the reason IDAs, and Bob can correct me if I'm wrong, were created is to help bolster, to help encourage businesses to come to create more of those positive tax ratables. So at the top of that tax ratable food chain is generally commercial businesses, because They pay a certain amount of taxes, but their impacts are a lot less than the amount of taxes they generate. So essentially, on a tax basis, it's a tax profit to the city. On a scale going down from that, all buildings, all uses have different sort of net benefit, net tax benefit. So commercial is kind of at the top. Generally, residential is known as net neutral. Sometimes it can be net positive depending on the economics of it. But when you build residential, it helps the economic base, but it doesn't add those additional sort of profit dollars to the tax roll. And then as you go further down, and there's a scale, and in each municipality, individual to municipality, there's that sliding scale. And I think that it's important, and I think as an IDA, it would be important for us to commission, hopefully it would be EDC or Grow America who could do this, who could look specifically at our tax base and our tax rolls and give us that hierarchy. Because in our scoring rubric for these UTEPs and for that, to say somebody could come to us and say in one building, I want to build a residential project here. What are your net fiscal impacts? We're going to create 2 jobs and we are going to create all of these gross taxes, but what are your net taxes? How many impacts you're going to use? How many essentially profit tax dollars are going to go to the city coffers to help pay for all of this, additionally help pay to grow the tax base? And I think that that's important when somebody says, okay, I want to come and put this, or somebody else says highest and best use. Actually, I want to use that building as adaptive reuse, as medical marijuana, or as manufacturing or something, and I'm going to create 30 jobs from this building, and I'm going to use significantly less impacts because I only have people here during the day. And those are studies that are independent of us. We don't do them. That we have these projects have to commission, and I think it's really important for us to understand in making these determinations, and especially for bigger projects that may come to us, to have that in our UTEP, so we don't have to go through perpetual revisions. We have that general sort of broad language, but that we are incentivizing the things that we want to incentive, which is jobs and net positive tax revenues.
So who would pay for who would do the impact analysis? Would that be a cost to the applicant, or?
Well, so they already do, our applicants already do essentially this. They don't really do the impact side, that's correct, right? They do.
So as part of your application, they have to do their own cost benefit analysis.
Yeah.
You are having a consultant that does their own, and then does the.
And they pay for that too.
They pay for that as well.
But we try to like,
So, but
how
are
do
you
we just
recommending?
get the report
So
out?
I'm recommending that we get that data point, that we get that additional study specific to Newburgh that says, we as an IDA really want to attract these kind of businesses. We want to attract, because this is.
And so we would have specific criteria in our UTEP that would directly address the impact.
That would further encourage kind of that top tier.
It's interesting that a decade ago, 20 years ago, a lot of UTEPs had grids with scoring, and you've got, depending on what the category was, you received either 1 to 3 points. And then depending on what your total categories points were, determine what level of assistance that you qualified for.
Right.
And it was very, it was very objective, and it was really very little controversy. But then there was a feeling in the last, I would say, 10 years, that was too rigid and wasn't providing enough benefit. And so you saw a lot of IDAs moving away from the grid. It's interesting that, the consultant is saying that it's still viable and coming back.
So
It is a way to really build projects based on the number of jobs and what the local impact is, and housing, housing would typically score low, but you could have this ancillary benefit, like in the Foundry days, really an adaptive reuse, which should score very high because it took a lighting building, created this really.
Yeah, I think it's also very accessible tool for educating the community. So that,
Right,
you
they
know,
understand
like,
what's.
we're not just doing this because we like the project, but there's real, we have the interest of the city.
Well,
and our
defensibility of
resources, right.
what we were trying to do. Yeah,
Well, and it's consistent with what you asked the question, where did IGPA generate from? They came from the late sixties, they started in, the act was passed in the late sixties. Primarily because of upstate, with what was happening then, which was factories closing, people moving south, getting out of the snow belt of upstate New York, and around all the cities all around the old canal. And what did the legislature think was the best way to attract businesses, which was to create an IDA that could look at communities, provide financial assistance, and create jobs, and cause people to come back and will stay. That was the whole incentive. And the incentives expanded in the seventies as economic downturn continued in the seventies. And really the IDA were really very prominent and mostly successful in the eighties and nineties. Then came this ability on the state legislature, kind of, when you add regulations, sometimes you lose the whole impact of what the IDAs were developing. There were abuses. There were old clients of mine that would go to Germany using IDA monies to attract German companies to come to Western New York. That's not really ever going to happen, but they had a nice trip.
Yeah, right.
So those abuses can't occur anymore. We can't do those types of trips.
So, we are the second largest historic district in New York State. We are a patchwork community that used to be mixed use of light industrial and heavy residential. We now know that light industrial is no longer the original light industrial. So the buildings that we have and the empty lots that we have can only be filled in with certain urban planning guidelines, which is part of the planning committee, and then has to pass ARC. So I just going to be really sensitive and careful as to how, like, we all want to get like a giant pharmaceutical company,
sure.
but within the confines of this city, that's an impossibility.
Right.
We have very few parcels of land that we can build a 1 million square foot
Right.
facility on. So I think we have an opportunity to think outside of the box a little bit and encourage different kinds of entrepreneurial tax rateables, smaller businesses. How are we enticing smaller businesses?
Well, so we have to be careful because we don't have a purview for certain small business.
So
Yeah.
what, yeah.
You can't do retail.
You can't do retail.
Well, let me take that back. The statute prevents you from doing retail. However, in the city of Newburgh, there are exceptions because of the poverty level and the need for those types of jobs. Okay,
So we can't necessarily be a small business incubator, but
it's not foreclosed, but it's not. It can't really be this big.
No, but if we wanted to get like a small cosmetic company or a small
Sure.
company that's going to employ 5 people,
That would be great.
yes.
and we had 100 of those,
Yep.
and we became
Yep.
the craft center on the Hudson Valley.
100 would not be good.
Yeah.
Now you're becoming this retail and.
No, manufacturing, not retail.
Okay.
Just manufacturing.
So to get
That
to your,
would be-
to get to your point, yes, and within these confines, this isn't just geared toward, we just talked about warehouse, but geared, that's why I think it's important for us to do sort of analysis specific to Newburgh's conditions, because we do not have 1 million square feet. What can,
Restrictions.
but what can we encourage, what does fit into those, and what is the highest and best use for the IDA based on what we have. And, the interesting part is to what you brought up, And what we currently have, you know, these UTEPs moved a lot towards having a schedule, set schedules of a pilot schedule example. And he showed us many different versions. He said, but this one, but this one, but this one. And I said, why do we have a schedule? Because nobody fits specifically into a schedule. He said, no, nobody fits into a schedule. Every single project is reviewed, and it's reviewed to make sure that there is no undue enrichment as a result of development, which we are all concerned about, to make sure a project comes to us, they propose a certain amount, our consultants go back and say, you don't maybe need that amount, and they come to a certain amount that they believe essentially the city is getting more benefits than essentially is paid out, so that that is done on a case-by-case basis, so there's no specific reliability in printing up a form or a schedule that says this is a 10 or 15-year UTEP that it would look like, because nobody fits into that. It's all based on their specific schedule. The but-for, obviously, the capital and operating costs for reasonableness, which is the process that we go through with each individual project. Right, pilot over term should always equal or be greater than savings during the term. The tax jurisdiction gets more than what is provided in savings. But that at each project level, they are reviewed. So what's the point in putting the schedule when I can't read it because it's even too small for my glasses to read? But this example tax pilot, to what you were saying, is okay. We have a 10,000 square foot building. Certain circumstances within our UTEP, like remediation costs, extensive site work, we would consider sewer, if they had to put in structured parking, if they had to put in certain things that we could consider that would potentially trigger one of these lines within the potential category that it would fit in, you would qualify maybe for a 15-year UTEP because your site costs were above a certain or a certain percentage of your project, and to frame it into that context instead of trying to package it into, we're giving you reliability because here we put up a schedule that nobody's going to fit into anyway, and so it doesn't matter. Or we're going to give you a district, but you're going to come in and say, we're just as important as what you said in the district, even though we're 2 blocks out of it. Because it's hard, it's very nebulous of what's going on there.
I mean, it also, different districts are gonna sort of, oh, we don't want that in our backyard.
Right.
And then we have that whole covered, and like, we just don't want it.
So anyway, the one other thing that I wanted to address, because housing is not in our current UTEP. The city council has the ability to pass pilots, which they do, and especially particularly as it results in housing, specifically affordable housing. We have addressed housing in extraordinary instances, of course, where it's transformative to a district or it's creating a place and that much of an extra net benefit. We don't have it in our UTEP, and I'm very much on this. Certain municipalities deal with it in certain ways where they have an opposite scenario of us. But I think we have to weigh sort of that in our hierarchy of net benefits. And like you said, a lot of the buildings that we're going to get, commercial buildings, almost inevitably are going to be commercial on the first floor, potentially on the second floor with residential above. We have to consider that. I said multiple times, you need to figure out how to attract market rate housing, because you need to create those tax rateables. You need to create that tax base of people that are then going to support housing. And I know that that's a very delicate balance within the city. But we have to decide as an IDA how we want to address giving benefits to housing.
To that point, are we held to a different criteria than the city council? So does the
Yes.
city council have to
Yes.
follow a certain criteria as to what kind of housing they can build compared
The
to
city
ours.
council can give out pilots in a very different way than we.
Any type of housing.
It doesn't have to necessarily create jobs, it doesn't necessarily have to create wealth. They have a different purpose, and that's very important, as a lot of us sit on different boards. There are a lot of agendas in the city, and there are a lot of different mandates. We have to remember that there are a lot of causes, and our mandate here is to try to create jobs and to create tax revenues, to do what we can towards that end. Now, being sensitive to our environment, our historic environment, our social environment, all those things are important, but to put in our scoring rubric that hierarchy. With that said, to not completely avoid affordable housing, he brought up a benefit that I thought was wildly interesting, that I think is something that we sort of discussed before. Let's see, was it in here? There is a program, and you're probably going to know this. There is a program, I believe it's at the state level. No. There is a program, what is it called? I'm just gonna pull up what it is. That allows the IDA to be able to give funding through a specific program, that has a short window or a short funding ability that the IDA is able to administer, that is able to encourage affordable home ownership. So it's purchase, this isn't rental housing, this is purchase housing. This is an ability for us to encourage affordability of housing in a home ownership model. Which he said, let's see, qualified affordable residential ownership projects to incentivize the increase of inventory of affordable for sale housing. It provides for sale units affordable to residents with 80% or below AMI, and to utilize a home ownership association or similar entity at the sole discretion of the agency to provide for a straightforward mechanism to collect pilot payments, collected in the HOA structure. Up to a 30-year pilot where current real property taxes on the qualified affordable residential ownership product would be abated by 50% for the term of the pilot schedule, with a 2% annual escalation applied, and the HOA is responsible for making the yearly pilot payments to the HOA fee paid by the homeowner. So this is an HOA situation. This is not necessarily single family homes. This could be in the form of a condo. This could be in the form, which I think personally, I believe in terms of our affordable housing and the affordable housing conundrum in the city and development, which I won't get into my rant about that. But I think that is, if that's something that we can provide for in our UTEP and encourage not affordable rental, but affordable home ownership. And that we could be a conduit or a mechanism for that. I think that is wildly exciting as an affordable home ownership.
The new building, right?
It could be adaptive reuse. It can be adaptive reuse of one of these buildings. Instead of turning them into for rent apartments, low income, it is a mechanism for ownership of a condo unit or a home unit.
So you're asking us if we see that as a direction we wanna go?
Well, it's an incentive, it's something that we can, again, put into the predictability of the UTEP. So if somebody's coming here who wants to build housing, in our hierarchy, rental housing is kind of near the bottom of that net positive tax rateable benefit. Homeownership is different, but addressing affordable housing is difficult within our mandate in terms of creating jobs and creating tax rateables. We also know that this is a way that we can address affordable housing. And I think a very responsible way that the city needs homeownership. Affordable. More than we need affordable rental. We want the people who are here to be able to stay here affordable. In a more permanent way than we were trying to develop them. Anyway, I got really excited.
I think. Second, that is a possibility that that was actually, in my opinion, I think, addresses something that I see us moving forward as the next level, if we're going to get into the housing crisis that we have at a national level, and then at a local level to have such low vacancy, so, yeah, it makes sense. I don't have anything further, and yeah,
It's connected to though, but it is connected to incentives that actually help people
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
today be able to afford to buy.
Sure.
So
And
it's
it
connected
creates
to those kinds of
permanency in the
state
community where you've got, right, you've got people who.
Typically, those developers come in with their own finance structure and
Yeah.
stuff, and then they basically, ideally, in a dream scenario, we have a situation where, yeah, we'll just come in and it knows that it works, this gonna be less friction, because we're already thinking on that. So I honestly, I don't think we.
So the end of this is, this isn't the end of this. I believe we're gonna try to get Kevin, they couldn't present at tonight's meeting, so I was supposed to get
So I think what we'll do is you'll go back to him and tell him
some of the direction.
some of the direction in which the UTEP should go and have him draft up. So we spoke about the New Rochelle model, which is, he said, probably the most complicated one in the whole state, and then the Suffolk County one, which you see in the slide that you have. And we said that the Suffolk County one is more the direction that we were gonna go. So I think that plus some of the other points that you mentioned, maybe you can include the net fiscal impact, maybe.
Yeah, if anything, one thing that I would like to,
Mhm.
is if we can identify. This is also a question for everybody, if we can identify industries that we see here and also add that to the detail. Like I
Industries that we
feel.
want to incentivize. Yeah.
Industries that are the type of industries that will answer your question. Higher paying jobs, type of thing, if you're this person, then you get this.
Right.
So I would say in addition to.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything that you talked about that leads to. I put it in a simple term for me, it's proactive.
That's great.
As opposed to just, in everything that you mentioned really is proactive. And it also, I keep thinking about how people don't understand what kind of benefit IDAs really bring to our community, and having a UTEP like this that also is an incentive for affordable home ownership. I think that really starts to give us, I see a story unfolding in our UTEP. So,
Yeah. Are you getting off this topic?
No, I'm gonna stay on the topic.
Okay.
So the idea of having another data point to validate a project is great. The insight that you brought up where having scales of things maybe was counterproductive. I just want us to realize that we're on we're kind of treading new grounds here. So I don't want us to lose creativity in some ways. I think we definitely should have a strong foundation as to where we're even starting, and then we're signaling the direction we're going. Great. But I don't want it to be like a restrictive thing where it's just like, plug it into the machine and then like,
No.
there should still be space there for a dialogue and an ability for us to look at a project and say, after vetting in the overall, there might be 5 jobs, but the overall economic impact spreads out is valuable enough to, I just
So
want
what
that.
we're trying to create too, this is supposed to be as flexible, and we're trying to move away from kind of that plug and play rigidity
Yeah.
and provide flexibility. But this also provides more flexibility within the sort of as of right UTEP, so that somebody can come in and you
Yeah.
don't have to get an extension. A group can always come and get an exception the way we have done with just about every other project up until this point. But this allows more reliability, predictability of, look, I could fit into this into this spot, and I can fit into this spot, and their incentive, their desire, they want more jobs, I know what they want, they want more tax rateable, so how about, like we've had projects come to us, we want to present this, and we said, we actually want more commercial, we want to see more commercial, oh, we'll go back to the drawing board, we'll go back to our designer to do that. They know this up front. This is what we're looking for, this is what we think is important, this is the defensibility and the data behind it, this is the sweet spot, but we are willing to talk about everything else in the context of, right, so it gives us a lot of flexibility, it's actually a very flexible UTEP, I believe, more flexible, but it also gives more direction.
Yeah, there should be also somewhere there that says, yeah, this is the structure, but don't be afraid to reach out. For the lack of better words, you know what I mean? Like, don't be discouraged by this, let's have a dialogue, so that, as long as that is part of it, I think it's important, everything that you mentioned.
And it seems.
Just as a reminder, the statute allows you to deviate.
Right.
That's right.
Right, so you always have.
So that's good.
Yeah, doing something like that.
Yeah, that's what I mean, I remember that being one of the first conversations, is that if we're deviating so much, maybe we don't have the right detail.
Right.
So, and, it makes it something we would all get very excited about if we have to deviate. So I think that the flexibility is there. The other thing that I'm thinking that thought might have come home with me. So is, I'm moving like that, but give me just one moment here. I would like us to consider pushing as close to the retail edge as we could. Because Newburgh needs retail. That's why nobody comes up here.
Yes, right?
I just think that
But I mean,
this
that's
project.
a question, to see how close we are, or for you, how close we are.
That's why he writes the resolution.
Because I think all the way back to the PR and the marketing is to get this out, great, let's put this in layman terms, we are looking for.
Yeah.
And get as close to enticing, please come to Newburgh, we have benefits packages.
When a developer has a mixed use project and they have some of the tenants in place, I think that's the way you can normally do it, but like, hey, this is the main show, no. But like, for example, the building that we're in, and we have a coffee shop, we have a working, co-working space, we have a gallery, those are the 3 tenants along with the 50 units above.
Yeah.
That's how you do it, but not, we're giving a pilot to the coffee shop.
Well, no, I guess, you're creating a mercantile is the business, the retailers pay a rent to the, however they use their space, those amounts.
Philippe's, what is it, 191?
96 Broadway.
No, but the
Oh,
other,
the same thing, yeah.
same thing, where he's gonna have commercial spaces on the first floor that are going to be retail, restaurant spaces, yeah.
I just wanna know, I wanna put in this 825.
Yes.
Alright.
So to wrap up this point, he's gonna hopefully, I don't know if the December meeting, is he gonna come talk to us? We ideally wanted to get
3
this done
weeks
sooner than later.
From now, I mean, you guys usually pass your policies at December, but I think like what we've said in the past, right, is that we're supposed to just analyze them at the very least, which is what we're doing right now. I mean, I could see probably by January, the very latest, maybe having something that you wanna present to.
Okay, so he might, because I think
Public
it's
hearing.
important he comes and talks to the board in the way, with
Mm,
the direction that we have, but in the way that he presented kind of.
Sure.
A few nights ago. that
I think, but
he was
also-
very informative.
Yeah, I think, but also once he has something a little bit more concrete as far as what you want, and then he like goes over that, cause if we're just going over UTEP theory, we could be there for
Yeah.
5 hours. So once you guys like know, yes, we kinda like this, now let's just go over like what this means, then yeah, I think.
Well, I think it's a lot of the points that they came out with in that last email that we had all gotten to, and these additional points, and we'll send them off to him and say, craft
Exactly.
something around.
Correct, and then once we have that, then we can have it.
Well done, that's.
Thank you for that, it's a lot of work.
Oh, this is bigger.
It's a lot of.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that. All right, so thank you for the summary, right? I think right now we can move on to item number 4, which is executive session, discuss the release of Keller Railroad project.
We do like disagree, I know.
Well, no, but say, let's go in and then you,
Oh, okay.
then it takes.
Yeah.
I move that we go into executive session.
I second.
Okay, all in favor,
Bye.
yeah, anyone
Opposed,
opposing? Okay,
All right, there's,
hold on.
so,
Just have to record.
all right, so, yes, so we just came out of executive session and we are asking our attorney to respond to the letter, to the city manager's letter. Yes.
So we have one more resolution.
Now we have one resolution.
I can make another one.
Right. So, some of you will recall 2 years ago, there was a modification done for this transaction. These are bonds issued in 2005 in connection with the parking garage, at St. Louis. The bonds were modified in 2010, as part of a global workout among the then lenders. At that time, KeyBank became the sole lender and the sole owner of your bonds, which were issued in 2005. That was the second supplemental. There was a third supplemental that we did as a board in 2021, which changed some interest rate definitions and modified the term of the bond payout. A lot of that was due to the fact that there was the pandemic crisis. Just before the pandemic hit, the intention of St. Luke's, which was purchased by Montefiore Health System from New York City, was to pay off all these bonds. But there was a problem with guarantees at that point in time because of the pandemic, and so everything was paid. Fast forward to 2023, Montefiore has come back and they've decided they're going to pay off all of the bonds. Orange County issued bonds in 2001. Your bonds were issued in 2005 for the parking garage. All those bonds are going to be redeemed and paid off as of December 1. The result of that is there'll be a letter of instructions that will be signed by you all next week at some point. It's still being worked on, otherwise I would call it down. It's still not, the numbers are not agreed upon. But those letter of instructions will say that what the amount of the payoff is, how much money the trustee currently owns or holds on behalf of the bondholders, KeyBank, and how much money needs to be paid by the borrower, which is actually community development properties, the voice, forget the right name, it's the voice. Community development properties, the Boyce Street 2 Inc. Which owns that parking garage. You'll provide a letter of instructions to the trustee. The trustee will then take all the money in, take all the money from the bond fund that holds, and pay it back on December 1st. As part of that, you're going to terminate all of your security documents, all the mortgages, all the pledges, all the guarantees, all that gets terminated. The UCC financing statements get terminated, so that on December 1st, the trustee makes the payment to the bondholder. The bondholder takes the bond and destroys it. All the security gets recorded, no charge to you. The hospital or the community properties, they pay for all the charges. They pay all the attorney's fees, the recording fees, they pay everything. Okay? This resolution does authorize the redacting of the bonds and allow either the chair or the executive director to find the documents that are necessary in connection. So the letter of instructions and all the termination documents. Okay.
The motion. I will make the motion to approve resolution 2023 11-20-02, authorizing the termination of said bonds.
A second?
Okay, so roll call. Okay, Marlon Ramos.
Yeah.
Christina Amaro,
Yes.
Adam Pollock is absent, Gregory Nato,
Yes.
Teresa Priesta.
Yes.
And Robin Williams McPherson.
Yes.
We should also just officially say that the board is tabling the first resolution up for tonight, 2023.
So,
11.
make it an official thing, the board is tabling. For the
2023-11-20-01.
all, yep. Anything in old business?
I just hate to do this, but in terms of old business, at some point, I'd just like to know what our process is from the ideas that we were generating for the budget, for moving forward, and how that gets executed or planned out by our ED, like, just what is the process, because we had some ideas. I have no idea if you think they're good ideas, you know, what you need to support to move into.
You mean,
Some of the execution of the ideas, like, you know, we talked about additional personnel. So are you in communication with the finance committee or with Marlon or, you know,
yes,
there's a process.
we've had the audit finance committee where we discussed the budget, and that was part of the budget, and then we were trying to figure out what those items were to go in those lines, and then that's when Chrissy came back and said, okay, well then tell me how much these things cost.
So
Okay.
that's the budget process, but to your point, we had created that list.
Yes.
Back in the summer, that we have to start actionably pursuing, not
Yes,
just
yeah.
budget line items, but
Right.
actually creating resolutions to look for these
Mhm.
people and pursue these projects.
Yeah, that's, yeah, we don't have to discuss it, but it's just like, so. Because as a board member, I don't know what's in process and what isn't in process, I don't know what you think of some of the ideas, because you have to execute them and. You know, and usually the executive director has a lot of, you know, ability to take initiatives on what's gonna work well for her office or whatever, and their advisors, so. I just don't know what the process is and who your thought partners are or how that all works.
The
So-
partners are here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really just depends on, you know, I think you're doing phase one of the website now. Depending on how that goes, I think then that will kick off your phase two, which in my mind is the big ideas that you have for the data that you wanna add. And until you have exactly pinpointed the data that you want on the website, then there's no way for me to know like who to contact to see what it costs. Like I know you wanna do a map, but also the website developer has contacts already that knows how to do those things. So it's kind of like a chicken and an egg scenario where, yes, I understand the main concept, but as far as like how to execute that before the first step has even begun.
Yeah, and maybe, I mean, like, we had that initial meeting in the summer, you, Chrissy and I, so maybe we should just reconvene that again and
Come up with
come
action
up,
plan.
yeah. Just so we can present some more concrete.
You have the list still, right?
I
So,
guess we still have that, but worked out a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We also, what do we think about Senate communication regarding additional board members? I forgot to mention. So is there a communication that we can all do, we can ask what's the.
You want me to just ask for an update?
Yeah, like a formal one. You know,
What makes this request different from the last one? Like, how do I formalize it that you want?
So do we have like an email trace of it? Do we have-
Of the last email that I sent to the executive office?
Yeah.
Yes.
What was their last response for it?
The last response was from Omar,
Gave us a list of the people.
correct, and then I asked for a copy of their resumes, and that was not
Alright,
responded.
so the same manner, do we think we need to get an update from the city to see what's going on with the additional board member?
You know, I have a thought, we have the list, we should contact them and start interviewing. Can we reach out?
It's on them, right?
It's on
We
the
can
final
interview
list
and make
too,
us some, and
We
maybe a
used to do that.
recommendation.
because I know
We used
people
to
who
vet
apply,
people
who are not.
and then recommend it and then.
I can ask if their list has been updated.
Because I know people who applied, who were not on the list.
I just found out that no, there's literally no response from them.
Actually, no, I did ask for an update, maybe about a month ago, and I was
You know
told
somebody
that they
else
were
who's
not
applied
ready yet.
and didn't. Yeah, I know somebody who applied, who got no response from the city.
Oh, but that's not acceptable.
Alright, so with that, I guess we are all agreed that we want an update on that. Okay,
Sure.
so then I guess we just need a motion to.
I mean, that we adjourn.
A second.
Alright, all in favor?